A prestigious cafe owner publicly humiliates a new black waitress, assuming she's inexperienced and unworthy of serving his elite clientele. What he doesn't know, she's one of the nation's most influential food critics, working undercover. His cruel treatment becomes the opening paragraph of a review that will destroy everything he's built. The morning sun poured through floor-to-ceiling windows of the Belmont Café, casting golden rectangles across marble floors. Crystal chandeliers caught the light, scattering rainbows over white tablecloths where silver gleamed. The air smelled of fresh espresso and warm croissants, mingling with expensive perfume from patrons in tailored suits. Maya Sterling pushed through the brass-handled door, her cream-colored blouse crisp against deep brown skin. She carried herself with quiet confidence, shoulders back, chin level. Her dark hair was pulled into a neat bun, small gold earrings catching light as she moved toward the service counter. A man in his 50s blocked her path. Richard Belmont wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's rent. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his golden watch catching light as he raised one hand like a traffic cop stopping vehicles. "Excuse me." His voice cut through the morning chatter. "This is a private establishment." Maya met his eyes calmly. "I'm aware. I'm here for my first shift." "Your shift?" Richard's laugh was sharp and theatrical. Several patrons turned to watch. "I think you're confused. We don't have any positions available." "I was hired yesterday. Maya Sterling. I start at 7. She kept her voice steady and professional. Richard's eyes traveled from her face down to her shoes and back up, lingering with obvious disapproval. "There must be some mistake. This cafe serves a very particular clientele. We require experienced staff with appropriate presentation." The words hung in the air like smoke. Maya felt every eye in the room on her skin. She noticed a woman in royal blue at table 6 lower her menu, watching. A man near the window pulled out his phone, camera aimed their direction. "I have 10 years of restaurant experience," Maya said quietly. "Your manager confirmed my start date." Richard's jaw tightened. He leaned closer, voice dropping to a stage whisper that still carried. "Listen carefully. I don't know what you're trying to accomplish, but this establishment has standards. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable somewhere else." Maya's fingers curled slightly at her sides. Her face remained perfectly calm. "I'll begin my shift now, Mr. Belmont." She stepped around him toward the staff entrance. His hand shot out, not quite touching her arm, but blocking her path. "We'll see how long that lasts. Hey, before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. And if you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and subscribe for part 2. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. 3 states knew Maya Sterling's name, though few could match it to a face. Her reviews appeared in culinary journals and major newspapers under a carefully maintained veil of anonymity. Restaurant owners feared her, chefs respected her, and readers trusted her completely. She'd exposed health violations in 5-star establishments and championed immigrant-owned hole-in-the-wall gems with equal precision. The Belmont Café represented everything Maya typically celebrated. Established 15 years ago, it had earned 3 Michelin recommendations and a waiting list for reservations. European pastries flown in twice weekly, award-winning baristas. An interior designer from Milan had created the space. Food critics from New York to San Francisco praised its perfection. Maya had spent 2 weeks researching before applying for the waitress position. She'd read glowing reviews, studied the menu, interviewed former patrons. Everything pointed to excellence. But 3 anonymous emails had arrived last month, each describing treatment that didn't match the public image. All 3 writers were women of color. All 3 had been staff members. She'd learned this approach from her grandmother, Rosa, who'd worked kitchens across Georgia for 40 years. "Baby," Rosa used to say while kneading dough, "fancy plating can't hide a rotten heart. You want to know the truth, watch how they treat the people who serve." Maya had started her career traditionally, writing reviews based on customer experiences. But 5 years ago, she'd gone undercover for the first time. A celebrated chef was abusing his staff while cameras rolled for his television show. Her expose had ended his career and started her new methodology. She never took the decision lightly. Going undercover meant risking her anonymity, her safety, sometimes her dignity. But it also meant uncovering truth that public-facing reviews could never capture. The culinary world needed accountability. She'd become that accountability. This morning, Maya had dressed carefully in her apartment. She'd chosen the cream blouse and black slacks for their professional simplicity. Her small leather bag contained the usual waitress necessities: notepad, pens, comfortable flats for long shifts. Hidden in the zippered pocket, a voice-activated recording device no larger than her thumb, and a phone with a camera good enough for evidence. She'd kissed her cat goodbye, locked her door, and taken the subway to the upscale district where the Belmont occupied a corner building with a view of the river. The neighborhood spoke of old money and new privilege. Cars at the curb cost 6 figures. Women walked tiny dogs wearing designer collars. Maya had felt optimistic walking those final blocks. Maybe the anonymous emails were isolated incidents. Maybe this would be a straightforward review praising genuine excellence. She'd even allowed herself to imagine the pastries everyone raved about. Richard Belmont's face had ended that optimism before she'd taken 10 steps inside. The staff break. Room sat behind the kitchen, a cramped space with lockers and one narrow bench. Maya stored her bag and pulled out the notepad the manager had given her yesterday during a brief rushed orientation. The manager, a tired-looking woman named Patricia, had seemed nervous. Now Maya understood why. Richard appeared in the doorway before she could review her section assignments. His presence filled the small room like displaced air. 2 other staff members, both white, both young, stopped their conversation and found reasons to leave quickly. Let me make something clear. Richard didn't bother with preamble. I don't know what strings you pulled to get hired, but Patricia doesn't make final decisions. I do. You'll work the floor today and we'll evaluate your performance. Maya met his gaze evenly. I'm ready to work, Mr. Belmont. We serve clients who expect perfection. One mistake, and you're finished. He pulled a laminated menu from his pocket and thrust it toward her. You have 10 minutes to memorize this. All items, all ingredients, all preparation methods. My guests ask questions. You'll answer correctly. The menu listed 47 items across breakfast and lunch service. Maya took it without comment. She'd already memorized it last week. Richard leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Section 7. VIP tables. High-maintenance guests who don't tolerate incompetence. Let's see what you're made of. Section 7 was visible from the entrance, the cafe's showpiece area. It was also the hardest section to serve, furthest from the kitchen, most demanding clientele. New staff typically started in Section 2 or 3, working their way up. Patricia had mentioned this yesterday as the standard training progression. This wasn't training. This was a test designed for failure. I'll need to observe another server briefly, Maya said calmly. To understand your specific service standards and table numbering system. Richard's smile didn't reach his eyes. You claimed 10 years of experience. Figure it out. He pushed off the doorframe and gestured sharply toward the dining room. Maya followed, notepad in hand. The morning rush was building. Every table in Section 7 was occupied. A couple at table 14 already looked impatient, glancing around for service. Start there, Richard pointed. They've been waiting 8 minutes, unacceptable in my establishment, don't embarrass me. He turned on his heel and walked away, but not far. He positioned himself near the espresso bar where he could watch her every move, arms crossed, expression expectant. Maya approached table 14 with a professional smile. Good morning. Welcome to the Belmont. My name is Maya, and I'll be taking care of you today. Can I start you with coffee or tea? The woman, blonde and elegant in lavender, barely glanced up. Finally. We've been sitting here forever. I'll have a cappuccino with almond milk, extra foam, 140 degrees exactly. And he'll have the Belmont breakfast special with egg whites only. No potatoes, extra avocado. Maya wrote quickly. Wonderful. And for you, sir. The man didn't look up from his phone. What she said about coffee, black. I'll have that right out. Maya moved toward the kitchen, memorizing the route, counting steps, noting where other servers navigated around furniture. She passed Richard. He was talking to a regular patron but watching her peripherally. His voice carried intentionally. We're trying someone new today. Hopefully she can manage. Standards have been slipping. The patron, an older man in a cobalt blue suit, glanced at Maya and nodded sympathetically at Richard. In the kitchen, Maya placed the order with practiced efficiency. The line cook, a young Hispanic man named Carlos, took the ticket without comment, but his eyes held warning. He'd seen this before. Maya returned to Section 7 with water and coffee. Table 14 barely acknowledged her. Table 15 flagged her down immediately. 4 business people needing full breakfast orders with modifications. Table 16 wanted recommendations she hadn't been trained to give. She handled each request calmly, writing clearly, moving efficiently despite not knowing the optimal paths yet. Her feet would hurt later. That didn't matter. Everything mattered: the layout, the timing, Richard's hovering presence, the way other staff gave her sympathetic looks but didn't offer help. When she delivered Table 14's order, the cappuccino foam was perfect. The eggs were fluffy. The avocado was fresh and beautifully plated. The blonde woman took one sip and called out loudly, "Excuse me, this is not 140 degrees. This is cold." Maya kept her expression neutral. "I apologize. Let me remake that for you immediately." She reached for the cup. The woman pulled it back. "Don't bother. The whole experience has been disappointing. We won't be returning." Richard materialized beside the table as if summoned. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Whitmore. This is unacceptable. Please, your meal is complimentary today." He shot Maya a look that could strip paint. "My office now." Every head in the dining room turned to watch Maya follow him. Richard's office matched the man, expensive, cold, designed to intimidate. Dark wood furniture, leather chairs, framed awards covering one wall. He shut the door with controlled force and turned to face her, hands clasped behind his back, like a judge preparing to deliver. "Sentence, sir. That performance was exactly what I expected. Inadequate, unprofessional, embarrassing. To my establishment." His voice was quiet now, which somehow felt worse than shouting. "Mrs. Whitmore is one of our most valued regulars. You just cost me a client." Maya stood with her hands at her sides, breathing steady. She didn't defend herself. Didn't point out that the cappuccino's temperature wasn't her fault or responsibility. Didn't mention that she'd been set up for failure. She simply absorbed every word, filing it away with everything else. "I'm giving you one more chance," Richard continued, "only because Patricia insists we're short-staffed today. But understand this, you're being watched. One more complaint and you're finished." "Are we clear?" "Yes, Mr. Belmont. Good, take your break." 10 minutes, then back to Section 7. He waved dismissively toward the door. Maya walked back through the kitchen to the cramped break room. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled her phone from her bag and checked the recording app. The green light blinked steadily, every word captured. She sat on the narrow bench and closed her eyes. The anger wanted to surface, hot and righteous. She pushed it down with practiced discipline. Anger later. Documentation now. She opened her notebook to a fresh page and wrote in her precise handwriting, 9:47 m. Owner publicly berated new employee for kitchen error beyond her control. Blamed staff member for guest complaint, to humiliate rather than correct systemically. Her grandmother's voice echoed in memory. "Baby. The ones who kick down stay at the top, by keeping others beneath their feet. You shine light on that, you change the whole structure." Maya touched the small recording device in her pocket, like a talisman. Every insult was evidence. Every dismissive gesture was proof. Richard Belmont thought he was dealing with a desperate waitress who needed this job and would tolerate anything. He had no idea he was performing for an audience of thousands who would read her words and see her evidence within weeks. The thought steadied her. She stood, smoothed her blouse and checked her reflection in the small mirror by the lockers. Her expression gave nothing away. Perfect. She had work to do. 20 years earlier, Maya had been 9 years old, standing on a step stool in her grandmother Rosa's kitchen. The small house in rural Georgia smelled like rising dough and simmering collards. Rosa's hands, weathered and strong, guided Maya's smaller fingers through the motion of kneading. "Cooking's honest work," Rosa had said, her voice rich and warm as the bread they made. "Food don't lie about who prepared it. You taste love, you taste care, you taste respect. You can taste anger too if someone's heart ain't right." Rosa had worked in kitchens her whole life. Country clubs, hotels, private homes for wealthy families. She'd raised 3 children and helped raise 5 grandchildren on wages that never matched her skill. She'd endured insults and invisibility with grace that young Maya had mistaken for weakness. "Why do you stay, Grandma?" Maya had asked once, after overhearing Rosa's employer berate her for taking a sick day. "Why don't you tell them they're wrong?" Rosa had smiled sadly. "Baby, some battles you fight with words. Some you fight with patience. And some you fight by teaching the next generation to use both." She'd tapped Maya's forehead gently. "You got a mind sharp as any knife in my kitchen. You use it. You tell the stories that need telling." Maya had taken those words to college, earned her journalism degree while working restaurant floors to pay tuition. She'd understood both worlds, the dining room's elegance and the kitchen's brutal reality. Her first articles had focused on celebrating chefs and restaurants genuinely worthy of praise. But her worldview had shifted 5 years ago during an assignment that started as a puff piece on celebrity chef Marcus Hyland. The man's restaurants were legendary, his television show wildly popular. Maya had been thrilled to interview him. Then she'd met Maria, a prep cook with burn scars on her arms. Maria had worked up the courage to share her story in a diner parking lot, voice shaking. Hyland screamed abuse daily, threw plates, created a culture of fear. His rage was worse toward women, toward immigrants, toward anyone he considered beneath him. Maya had gone undercover as a line cook for 3 weeks. She documented everything. Her expose had destroyed Hyland's empire and freed 18 staff members from toxic employment. It had also taught Maya the power of embedded truth-telling. She'd been anonymous ever since. No photos accompanied her bylines, no public appearances, no social media presence. She'd become a ghost who haunted the culinary world, feared and respected in equal measure. Restaurant owners knew her name but couldn't pick her from a crowd. That anonymity gave her access. It also meant each undercover assignment carried risk. If someone recognized her, the story ended. Worse, if someone recognized her too soon, evidence disappeared and truth stayed buried. The Belmont Café was her 43rd undercover investigation. Some had revealed minor issues quickly resolved with conversations. Others had exposed systematic abuse requiring legal intervention. She approached each with the same methodical care Rosa had taught her with bread dough, patience, precision, and respect for the process. Richard Belmont had no idea who stood in his break room. That was exactly how she needed it. The lunch rush hit the Belmont like a wave. Section 7 filled completely, every table demanding attention simultaneously. Maya moved through the controlled chaos with practiced efficiency, taking orders, delivering plates, refilling water glasses. Her feet screamed in her flats. She ignored them. Richard watched from his position near the bar. He'd positioned himself to observe her fail. Instead, she'd handled 12 tables without significant errors. His expression had gone from expectant to frustrated to calculating. During a brief lull, Maya retreated to the kitchen for a water pickup. That's when she noticed Carlos carefully checking dates on containers in the walk-in refrigerator. He pulled one out, examined it, and quickly shoved it to the back. "Problem?" Maya asked quietly. Carlos glanced around nervously. "Just organizing. Health inspection next week." But Maya had seen the date. The artisan butter, featured prominently in the signature pastries, had expired 4 days ago. She filed that information away and continued her shift. Throughout the afternoon, she observed patterns. Richard's treatment wasn't universally harsh. When he corrected James, the young white server in Section 3, his tone was firm but instructive. When he spoke to Carlos or to Amara, the black hostess, his voice carried contempt. At table 19, an elderly Asian woman sat alone with tea and a newspaper, Mrs. Chen, according to the reservation book. She'd been watching Maya all morning. When Maya refilled her tea, Mrs. Chen's hand brushed hers, pressing a folded napkin into her palm. "Read this later," the woman whispered. "You're not the first." Maya pocketed the napkin discreetly and continued working. She waited until her second break to unfold it in the privacy of a bathroom stall. Mrs. Chen's handwriting was neat and precise. "I worked here 2 years ago. Hostess position. Mr. Belmont made my life unbearable. Comments about my accent, assignments designed to humiliate me, public reprimands for invisible failures. I documented everything but had nowhere to take it. I see him treating you the same way. You deserve better. If you need a witness, find me. Margaret Chen. A phone number followed. Maya photographed the note, then carefully tore it into small pieces and flushed them. Her hands were steady, but her heart raced. Confirmation, pattern, witness. She spent her final 2 hours observing everything with heightened attention. She noticed Richard praising a white server's work effusively, while criticizing Amara for identical performance. She saw him check his watch pointedly when Carlos returned from a bathroom break that lasted 4 minutes, but say nothing when James disappeared for 15. She watched him charm wealthy patrons with European flair while dismissing questions from anyone who looked working class or ethnic. His smile was a weapon he deployed strategically, and she noticed the expired ingredients. Not just butter. Cream dated 5 days past safety. Produce showing early spoilage, but still being used for rustic preparations. Nothing egregious enough to cause immediate illness, but everything cutting corners on the excellence the Belmont claimed as its standard. Richard's establishment was beautiful on the surface. Underneath, it was rotting. At the end of her shift, Maya collected her tips, $23 from 8 hours of work. Section 7's VIP clients tipped poorly, apparently. Or perhaps they'd sensed Richard's disapproval and followed his lead. She found Patricia in the back office, looking exhausted. "Good work today," the manager said quietly. "I'm sorry it was difficult. Tomorrow will be better." Patricia's eyes said she didn't believe that. Maya thanked her and left. Outside, the evening air felt crisp and clean after hours of recycled interior atmosphere. Maya walked 2 blocks before pulling out her phone. She had 17 pieces of documentation, 3 photographs of expired items, 1 voice recording, 1 witness contact, and 8 hours of observations that painted a detailed picture of discrimination disguised as management. She had everything she needed, except she had to go back tomorrow. One day wasn't enough. Patterns required repetition. Evidence required depth. Richard would expect her to quit. That's what usually happened to the people he targeted. Maya turned toward the subway, her mind already planning tomorrow's approach. She wasn't usual people. Maya returned the next morning with renewed purpose. Her body ached from yesterday's shift, but her resolve was stronger. She'd spent the evening transcribing recordings and organizing evidence into a preliminary outline. The story was taking shape. Richard was waiting when she arrived. He stood near the entrance with arms crossed, blocking her path in a now familiar pose. His expression carried something new, grudging acknowledgement mixed with fresh determination. "You came back," he said flatly. "I'm surprised. I'm here to work, Mr. Belmont." Maya kept her voice professional and neutral. Section 7 again. Same standards, actually higher standards. "Mrs. Whitmore's complaint went on our record. I need you to prove yesterday wasn't representative of your capabilities." He paused, watching her face for reaction. "Assuming you have capabilities." The morning proceeded like a repeat performance. Demanding tables, impossible timing, Richard's hovering presence. But Maya had learned the rhythm now. She moved through her section with efficient grace, anticipating needs, handling complaints with calm professionalism. By midday, something shifted. Her tables were satisfied. Tips were better. Even Richard seemed to struggle finding obvious faults. She watched confusion flicker across his face when table 14, Mrs. Whitmore, returned despite yesterday's theatrics, complimented the service warmly. "Much better," Richard said during her break, his tone suggesting the words physically pained him. "Adequate performance. Perhaps you can manage this position after all." For a moment, Maya almost believed he might soften. Perhaps yesterday had been an aberration, a bad day, a misunderstanding. "Perhaps, of course," Richard continued, voice dropping. "We'll be docking yesterday's wages for the complimentary meal. $47. Staff errors come out of staff paychecks. It's in the handbook Patricia should have given you." There was no handbook. Maya knew because she'd asked. "You'll also close tonight. Section 7 requires deep cleaning after service. Carlos usually handles it, but he requested the evening off. You'll take his shift." Richard's smile was thin and sharp. "Unless that's a problem." It meant a 14-hour day. It meant missing her planned interview with another former employee. It meant exhaustion and deliberate punishment, disguised as operational necessity. "No problem, Mr. Belmont." "Excellent." He walked away, satisfaction evident in his stride. Maya watched him go. She pulled out her phone during the break and texted her editor, Need one more day. Evidence is substantial. Trust me. The reply came quickly. You've got 48 hours. Then we publish with what we have. Maya returned to the floor. As the afternoon stretched into evening, she catalogued everything. The way Richard jovially clapped James on the shoulder, while barely acknowledging Amara's identical achievement. The way he seated white patrons immediately, but made others wait despite empty tables. The way his smile became ice when anyone questioned his decisions. At closing time, only Carlos, Maya, and Patricia remained. Carlos showed her the cleaning protocols with apologetic efficiency. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "He always does this to new people he doesn't like. Pushes until they break or quit." "How long have you worked here?" Maya asked while scrubbing tables. 3 years. I need the job. I have family depending on me. Carlos's voice was hollow with resignation. We all just survive however we can. Maya finished cleaning at midnight. Her back screamed. Her feet were blistered. She'd been at the Belmont for 16 hours. Richard's office light was still on. He emerged as she was gathering her things, looking fresh and pressed despite the late hour. "Closing went well. I might make this your regular responsibility." Maya met his eyes steadily. "Whatever you need, Mr. Belmont." He studied her face, searching for cracks in her composure. Finding none, his expression shifted to something almost resembling respect. "You're tougher than I expected. Perhaps I misjudged you." The words hung between them. "An olive branch or another test?" "Good night, Mr. Belmont." Maya left before he could say more. Outside, the street was empty and quiet. She walked 3 blocks before stopping under a streetlight, pulling out her phone and opening the Notes app. Her fingers flew across the screen, documenting every detail while memory was fresh. She had everything. More than everything. Tomorrow she wouldn't return to the Belmont as a waitress. Maya's apartment was small but meticulously organized. She sat at her desk at 1 in the morning, laptop open, cursor blinking on a blank document. Her editor's deadline was 24 hours away. The evidence folder on her desktop contained 43 files. Photos of expired ingredients, audio recordings of discriminatory comments, written testimony from Mrs. Chen and 2 other former employees who'd responded to careful outreach, documentation of wage theft, patterns of systematic bias in seating, assignments, and discipline. Her phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. "I know who you are. Carlos figured it out. He recognized you from an old article photo. Please be fair to those of us who had no choice." Maya's blood ran cold. Her anonymity was compromised. If Patricia knew, how long before Richard knew? How long before evidence disappeared? Witnesses were pressured. The story died before publication. She typed back quickly. "I'm always fair. This isn't about you. Talk soon." Another text arrived, this one from an unknown number. "Stop digging or face consequences. The Belmont has powerful friends. You've been warned." Maya stared at the message. Threats meant she'd struck something deeper than one man's prejudice. She thought about the clientele she'd observed. Politicians, business executives, old money families. Richard's establishment wasn't just a cafe. It was a gathering place for the city's elite. Exposing him meant challenging a network. Her grandmother's face filled her mind. Rosa had never backed down from truth, even when truth cost her. Especially then. Maya opened a new document and began typing. "The Belmont Café. When Excellence Becomes Excuse for Discrimination." By Maya Sterling. Investigative food critic. Her fingers moved across the keys with decisive speed. She wrote about the expired butter served to unsuspecting guests paying premium prices. She described the systematic mistreatment of staff members based on race and ethnicity. She detailed the wage theft, the impossible standards applied selectively, the culture of fear masked by European elegance. She wrote about Mrs. Chen, who'd endured 2 years of humiliation before escaping. About Carlos, trapped by economic necessity. About Patricia, caught between conscience and survival. About every person Richard had diminished while building his empire of false excellence. The article grew under her hands. 2,000 words. 3,000. She included photo evidence with timestamps. She embedded audio clips with transcriptions. She cited labor law violations and health code breaches. She made it irrefutable. At 4 in the morning, she reached the conclusion. Her cursor blinked over empty space. This was the moment that would end her anonymity. Once published, Richard would know. The culinary world would know. She'd never work undercover again. Her most effective tool would be gone forever, but silence meant Richard would continue. Silence meant the next Maya, the next Carlos, the next Mrs. Chen. She thought about her grandmother kneading bread with weathered hands, patient, purposeful, unafraid. Maya typed the final paragraph, detailing her methodology and revealing her identity as the waitress Richard had mistreated. She attached her credentials, her history, her reputation. She made herself vulnerable to prove the truth. Then she attached the article to an email addressed to her editor with a subject line. "Publish immediately. I'm going public." Her finger hovered over the send button. Everything changed after this. Her career, her safety, her future. The cursor blinked, waiting. Maya thought about Rosa, about dignity, about the next person who would walk through the Belmont's doors, seeking opportunity and finding only cruelty. She pressed send. The email disappeared into the digital void. Sent at 4:17 a.m. Maya closed her laptop and sat in the darkness of her apartment. Her phone buzzed with her editor's immediate response. "Holy hell. This is nuclear. Publishing in 3 hours. Prepare for fallout." Across the city, the Belmont Café sat dark and silent, unaware that dawn would bring its reckoning. Richard Belmont slept peacefully in his luxury penthouse, confident in his power and position. He had no idea what was coming. Maya didn't sleep. She sat at her window watching the city wake up, phone in hand, refreshing her email obsessively. At 7:30 a.m. her editor called. "It's live. Website traffic is already crashing from volume. Social media is exploding. Maya, this is the biggest story we've published in 5 years." Maya's hands trembled. "Any response from Belmont?" "Not yet. Give it time." "Are you safe?" "That threat you mentioned, I'm fine. I'll check in every hour." Maya hung up and opened her laptop. The article dominated the homepage with a stark headline and her byline in bold. The comments section was already overflowing. Readers expressed shock, anger, support. Some questioned her methods. Most praised her courage, but Maya felt hollow. She'd exposed Richard, yes. She'd documented truth, yes. But she'd also destroyed the tool that made her most effective. No restaurant owner would ever hire an unknown applicant without intensive vetting now. Her undercover career was finished. Her phone stayed silent otherwise. No calls from friends, she had few by design. No messages from family. Her grandmother was gone, her parents distant. Her work had been her identity. That identity had just shifted permanently. She thought about making coffee, but couldn't summon the energy. She thought about eating, but felt nauseous. She sat in her small apartment surrounded by evidence folders and empty silence, wondering if she'd made the right choice. The cat rubbed against her legs, purring. Maya picked her up, burying her face in soft fur. "Just you and me, Luna, like always." Outside her window, the city moved through its morning rhythm. People headed to work, to school, to lives that continued unchanged. Somewhere, Richard Belmont was probably just waking up, reaching for his phone, seeing the notifications. Maya imagined his face when he realized. The confusion, the recognition, the rage. She waited. The response came at 9:47 a.m., not from Richard directly, but from the city's culinary community. 3 established food critics retweeted Maya's article with endorsements. A James Beard Award winner called her brave and necessary. Celebrity chefs began sharing their own stories of encountering Richard's behavior. Then the dam broke. Former Belmont employees started coming forward publicly. A dishwasher named Jerome described 3 years of racial slurs. A pastry chef named Svetlana detailed sexual harassment. A server named Dion shared wage theft documentation that matched Maya's findings. By noon, local news stations had picked up the story. Reporters camped outside the Belmont. The cafe remained closed, lights off, door locked. Richard's lawyer released a terse statement. "These allegations are false and defamatory. Mr. Belmont will pursue all legal remedies." But the evidence was overwhelming. The health department announced an emergency inspection. The Labor Board opened an investigation. The Michelin Committee released a statement expressing serious concern and promising review. Maya's phone finally rang. Patricia's voice was shaking. "He fired me. He blamed me for hiring you. But Maya, thank you. I've been complicit too long. I'm cooperating with investigators. Carlos and Amara, too. We're done protecting him. I'm sorry you lost your job, Maya said quietly. Don't be. I should have lost it years ago for staying silent. Patricia paused. There's something else. Richard keeps files. Personal information on employees. He considers threats. Photos, addresses, family details. He uses them for control. They're in his office safe. The combination is his founding date backwards, 3109. Maya sat up straighter. Patricia, that's evidence you need. I'm texting you the details. The inspectors should know what to look for. Patricia's voice strengthened. He took everything from people who couldn't fight back. Time someone fought back. After hanging up, Maya immediately contacted the investigative journalist who'd been assigned to cover the expanding story. She shared Patricia's information carefully, ensuring it would reach proper authorities through legitimate channels. By evening, the Belmont's closure became official. Health violations had been confirmed. Labor investigations were ongoing. Richard's lawyer had stopped returning calls. Maya ventured out to buy groceries. At the corner store, the cashier recognized her from news coverage. You're her. The Critic. What you did. My sister worked at places like that. Thank you. Walking home, Maya passed the Belmont. News vans still surrounded it. A small group of protesters held signs. Workers deserve dignity and excellence without exploitation. Someone had taped photos of former employees to the window. With the words, "We see you now," written across them, Mrs. Chen stood among the protesters. She caught Maya's eye and nodded once, a gesture of solidarity and completion. Maya returned to her apartment feeling less hollow. The tool she'd lost, undercover access, had been replaced by something unexpected. A community of people willing to speak truth publicly. Her story had given others permission to share theirs. Her editor called again. 3 publishers want book deals. 2 streaming services want documentary rights. Maya, you're not just a food critic anymore. You're a movement. Maya looked around her small apartment, at her laptop, at her files full of evidence, at Luna sleeping peacefully on the couch. I'm just someone who told the truth, she said. That's exactly what makes you powerful, her editor replied. 3 days after publication, Maya received an invitation she hadn't expected. A live interview on the city's most watched morning show. The segment would address restaurant industry reform and workplace discrimination. Richard Belmont had agreed to appear and set the record straight. Maya's editor advised against it. He'll ambush you. He's desperate and dangerous. That's exactly why I'm going, Maya replied. The television studio was cold and bright with artificial lighting. Maya arrived early, wearing the same cream-colored blouse she'd worn to the Belmont, symbolic armor. She was escorted to the green room, where a production assistant brought water and reviewed the format. Through the door, she heard Richard's voice in the adjacent room, confident, charming, performing. When she was called to the stage, the host, a polished woman named Jennifer with a reputation for tough questions, greeted her warmly. Thank you for joining us, Miss Sterling. This took courage. Thank you for having me. Richard was brought out next. He wore an expensive navy suit and projected wounded dignity. His smile was camera-ready, his posture relaxed. He barely glanced at Maya as he sat down. Jennifer began with softball questions about the Belmont's history and reputation. Richard answered smoothly, emphasizing his dedication to excellence and his shock at these unfortunate allegations. Mr. Belmont, Jennifer said, pivoting. Ms. Sterling has provided extensive documentation of discrimination, health violations and wage theft. How do you respond? With deep disappointment that a respected critic would engage in such a calculated attack. Richard's voice carried practiced sorrow. Miss Sterling came to my establishment with predetermined conclusions. She misrepresented herself, secretly recorded private conversations, and presented selectively edited evidence. This isn't journalism. It's a vendetta. Jennifer turned to Maya. How do you respond? Maya kept her voice calm and factual. I documented systematic patterns over multiple days using standard investigative techniques. Every piece of evidence has been verified by independent sources and authorities. Health inspectors confirmed expired ingredients. Labor investigators confirmed wage violations. 7 former employees have corroborated the discrimination. This isn't selective. This is comprehensive. Those employees are disgruntled, Richard interjected. People I had to discipline for poor performance. Of course they'll support false claims. Then explain Mrs. Chen, Maya said quietly. She worked for you 2 years ago. She documented the same behavior I witnessed. Explain Carlos, who stayed for 3 years despite mistreatment because he needs employment. Explain Patricia, your manager, who finally found the courage to testify. Are they all lying? Richard's composure slipped slightly. I don't know who's been feeding you these stories. I was there. I experienced it directly. Maya leaned forward. You told me I didn't belong in fine establishments. You assigned me impossible tasks designed to humiliate me. You docked my wages illegally. You created a culture where excellence was an excuse for cruelty. That's your interpretation. It's documentation. Maya pulled out her phone. May I? Jennifer nodded. Maya opened an audio file. Richard's voice filled the studio. I don't know what you're trying to accomplish, but this establishment has standards. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable somewhere else. Richard's face paled. That's out of context. Here's more context. Maya played another clip. Richard's comment about her kind echoed through the studio. The audience gasped. Jennifer's expression hardened. Mr. Belmont, that language is unambiguous. It was a stressful day. I didn't mean... Richard stumbled over words, his smooth facade cracking. You meant it, Maya said. You mean it every time you treat people as less than human because of their race or background. You mean it when you serve expired food while charging premium prices. You mean it when you steal wages from people who can't fight back. I built that cafe from nothing. Richard's voice rose, control finally breaking. I created jobs. I brought culture to this city. Who are you to tear down what I've built? I'm someone who believes excellence requires integrity, Maya replied. Your cafe was beautiful. Your food was praised. But none of that matters if it's built on cruelty. Jennifer turned to the camera. We've confirmed that Health Department and Labor Board investigations are ongoing. The Michelin Committee has officially suspended the Belmont's recommendations pending review. Mr. Belmont, what's next for your establishment? Richard stood abruptly. This interview is over. I won't be subjected to this character assassination. He pulled off his microphone and walked off the set. The studio fell silent. Maya sat still, hands folded, as cameras captured Richard's exit. Jennifer turned to Maya. Strong response from Mr. Belmont. Your final thoughts. My hope is that this starts a conversation about accountability in the restaurant industry. Workers deserve dignity. Customers deserve honesty. Excellence without ethics is just performance. Maya paused. And performance eventually gets reviewed. The segment ended. In the green room afterward, Maya checked her phone. Social media had exploded. The clip of Richard's audio confession was viral. News outlets were calling it a stunning admission. Her editor texted, "You just ended him." Well done, but Maya felt no triumph, only tired relief. The Belmont Café closed permanently 4 weeks later. Health violations and labor violations resulted in fines Richard couldn't or wouldn't pay. The building was sold to a restaurant group committed to ethical practices and diverse hiring. They renamed it the Common Table and invited Maya to the opening. She attended quietly, watching former Belmont staff work in an environment of respect. Carlos was promoted to sous chef. Amara became the general manager. Patricia joined a non-profit supporting restaurant workers' rights. Mrs. Chen was hired as a consultant on workplace culture. Richard Belmont disappeared from public life. His lawyer negotiated settlements with former employees. Rumors suggested he'd moved to Europe, seeking to rebuild far from the scandal. Maya didn't track him. Her work was finished. The article won awards. Publishers sent contracts. Documentary producers offered deals. Maya accepted a book contract to explore systematic problems in the culinary industry. Her anonymity was gone, but her platform had expanded. She received hundreds of messages from workers in restaurants, hotels, retail establishments. Each one shared stories of discrimination, abuse, and exploitation. Each one thanked her for validation and visibility. She read every message, responded when possible, and documented patterns for future investigation. One morning, 6 weeks after publication, Maya visited her grandmother's grave. She brought fresh flowers and sat on the grass beside the stone marker. I did what you taught me, Grandma. I told the truth. It cost something, but it mattered. The wind rustled through nearby trees. Maya imagined it was Rose's approval. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. My name is Sophia. I work at Chateau Blanc. I think they're doing the same things Belmont did. Can you help? Maya stared at the message. She couldn't go undercover anymore. That tool was gone. But she could investigate other ways. She could amplify voices that needed hearing. She could use her platform for systematic change. She typed back, "Yes, tell me your story." Walking back to her car, Maya passed a cafe. Through the window, she saw a diverse staff working together with easy camaraderie. A manager was training a new employee with patience and encouragement. The space felt warm and genuine. That's what excellence looked like. Not perfect plating and European imports, but human dignity and honest work. Maya smiled and continued walking. Her purpose had shifted but not diminished. She'd spent 10 years hiding to expose truth. Now she'd spend the next 10 years standing visible, making truth impossible to ignore. Her grandmother would be proud. Maya stood at her apartment window as evening fell across the city. Luna purred in her arms. Below, restaurants were lighting up for dinner service. Somewhere in those kitchens people were working, some with dignity, some without. Her work would never be finished. But it was work that mattered. She thought about the journey from Rose's kitchen to this moment, about the people who'd trusted her with their stories, about Richard Belmont and the empire built on sand, now washed away by simple truth, about the courage it takes to speak and the courage it takes to listen. The restaurant industry was changing, slowly, imperfectly, but changing. More critics were questioning not just food quality, but workplace ethics. More diners were asking about sourcing and staff treatment. More workers were organizing, demanding, refusing to accept cruelty as the price of employment. Maya opened her laptop to continue her book. She wrote about systems, not just individuals, about how discrimination thrives in silence and dies in exposure, about the responsibility of those with platforms to use them wisely, about her grandmother's hands kneading bread with patient strength. Her phone buzzed. Sophia had sent details about Chateau Blanc. Maya read them carefully, already forming an investigation strategy. No undercover work this time, but thorough journalism that amplified worker voices rather than replacing them. She typed back, "I'm listening. Let's talk tomorrow." Outside her window, the city lights multiplied against the darkening sky. Each light represented a story, a struggle, a person trying to survive with dignity. Maya couldn't tell every story, but she could tell enough stories loudly enough that silence became impossible. She thought of Richard in whatever European city he'd fled to, probably already finding new ways to diminish people while calling it excellence. Some people never learned, but some did. The common table proved that. Patricia's new work proved that. Carlos's promotion proved that. Change was possible. Slow, difficult, but possible. Maya closed her laptop and looked at Luna. "Ready for the next one?" The cat purred agreement. In Rose's kitchen 20 years ago, a little girl had learned that food doesn't lie about who prepared it. Now that little girl, grown and scarred and strong, knew something else. Neither does silence. Both reveal truth about character. The choice is always whether to serve truth or hide it. Maya had chosen, and she'd choose the same way tomorrow, and every day after, until her hands were as weathered as Rose's and her legacy was as lasting. Excellence without ethics is just performance. Performance eventually gets reviewed. The review was written. The truth was told. The rest was ripples spreading outward through dark water, creating light.